Okay, so on to the next exercise. Wow, I feel this one was really long. The next exercise is going to be about computing the average of a list. So remember what the average is. The average of a sequence of elements is basically what happens when you sum the sequence. So here's a sequence of elements. I sum all of them and I divide by the number of elements that are in the sequence. So in this case there are 7 elements and the average will be computed like this. Mathematically, it's what we also call the mean very often, especially in statistics. So that's what the average is. And now we're supposed to do that with lists. So what does that mean? Well, I have a little example here. I'm just going to copy paste it and then I'm going to open the file that we should edit in this case. So the file is called average.py. I'm going to open it and it looks like this. And here we're supposed to compute the average. And there's no code that calls this function, so I think what I'll just do in the bottom is that I'll just print out something helpful like the average is, and then I'm going to call my function here on this argument, average of this list. So I'm just trying to replicate the behavior I'm supposed to see when I call the function. I know this average should be 2.5. Okay, so how would I do this? Well, let's move into this Python IPL here, and here's my list, and I'm going to define it as the variable a. There are two things we can do here. The first is to use a loop, and the second is to use a trick. I'm going to start with the loop. So when you want to compute the average, there's like two components in it. One is the sum of the numbers, and another one is that we need to define by the number of elements in the list. Well, the number of elements in the list is pretty easy. We can do that using the length operation. So we are left with just the problem of having to compute the sum of these numbers. Let's call that sum for x, I don't know, and we say we initialize that sum to be 0. Then we can do this, then we can actually loop over the elements in the list. So the way I can do that is to use a for loop. So when I write for element in a, print element, that's actually just going to assign element to each element in the list one at a time, and then I'm going to execute what's inside the for loop. In this case, I'm just printing it out. So I'm so in the beginning element will be equal to 4, and then I'm printing out 4. Then it's going to be equal to 2 in the second iteration of the loop, and then I print out 2, and then it's 1, and then I print out 1, and then it's 3, and then I print out 3. And if I want to compute the sum, it's just basically summing all of these together. So what I can do is that I can write the for loop, and then I can update x. So I can say x is equal to the old value of x plus the value of this element. And then what will actually happen is that x will end up being 10, because it starts out as being 0, and then I first add 4 to x. So then x will be assigned to 0 plus 4, so 4. Then element is equal to 2, and then x will be equal to 4 plus 2, so 6. Then I add 1, so then it's 6 plus 1, that will be 7. And then 3, so element will be equal to 3 at the end. And then it's 7 plus 3, and that's 10. And that's why x will have the value of 10. So using that idea, I can implement it like this. I can say x is my sum. It doesn't matter what I call it. I don't think x is a particularly nice value. Then of course I need to be watchful, because the list is going to be assigned up here. So I write the for loop. Remember that the list is called not a but nums. So this, and then I say x is equal to x plus element. And then when I have to finally compute the average, I just need to remember to return x divided by the number of entries in the list, and that can be gotten. I can get that by using the length function. So length of nums. And now as a little self-check, we can see that there are 4 numbers here. The sum is 10, and then 10 divided by 4 is 2.5. So this should indeed print out 2.5. So let's just check that by running the script. So I just use the run button. And that didn't work out well, because the function is supposed to be called calculate average. Average is the name of the file. And Python was actually making me aware of that. It was using this squiggly line to say it's not defined. So that was my bad. I didn't pay attention to what Python was trying to tell me. But now when I run the file, we can see that it prints out 2.5. As I said, there is a simpler way of doing this. So the simpler way is a bit of a shorthand. So now I'm going to start the Python interpreter again, and then I'm going to define this list again, 2, 1, 3, like this. And then in fact I can just use sum to get the sum. So if I didn't want to write a for loop, what I could do would be this. I could just say that the sum is equal to the sum of nums, like maybe I call it x. Oops, not the sum of the sums, like this. And this is equivalent to what I had before, so now I can comment all of this stuff out. Doesn't serve a purpose. And of course I can simplify this even more by just doing replace sum of nums divided by the length of nums. And this will probably be a smarter approach because there's no intermediate variables. It's just a single line, so it's much more explicit. We can just verify that it doesn't work. Why? Interesting. Or that's because, yeah, that is the trap that I always fall in. I started the Python interpreter and then I tried to run a script. So now I was trying to run the script inside the interpreter. It's a little bit silly, but I need to type quit to exit this interactive interpreter. So whenever you see an error like this when you press run, notice that there are 3 of these greater than signs, and that means that you basically need to type quit. But now it works, and I can just go to the tests. So I press on the test flask, I find the test for week 5, and then I guess that the test is this one, and I just run them, and I confirm that it's implemented correctly. Okay, so thanks.